Good morning, good peoples. Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation back at you. And I have what I think is just a fantastic. I think I've given top five, I've given others. I always talk about a Nico Eagle, the second largest mining company, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I came out with 20 miners to buy to make you rich in 3 to 5 years. And the rationale here is there's oh, varying levels of risk or varying degrees of risk whenever you invest in, anything that's sort of unproven. So I wanted to get that out of the way and say these aren't explorers, these aren't little tiny companies. Everybody in this 20 stocks has at least a 1 billion market cap. I'm not talking about moose pasture, and even though the guy maybe has a great track record and he's going to get equipment in, he's going to drill like crazy, and he's going to call his sexy silver mine, and everybody's going to fly in when silver's $150 run into 200. And you'll see some of that if we get those prices, which honestly, I think we will. I think we'll see sort of 125 probably in 2 to 3 years. We've been undersupplied in silver for 3 to 4 years, and that's coming to a head. It's just used in solar, it's used in weapons, it's used in medical. It's the greatest conductor of electricity, along with copper and some other metals. So it's just a fabulous metal. It has a small monetary value, but primarily it's industrial consumption. But that it becomes a cheap gold when people run to that. You now have digital gold with BTC. I'm not really sure that you have a store of wealth in altcoins, but everything always has a following that's dependent on the parent, sort of a parent child relationship. So without getting into all that, let me dive into these stocks. So I started with the idea I'm going to do 50, and I what I'll probably do is 20 more after these. But let me explain the different groupings and why I decided initially I was going to do 50 miners that you must own and tell you why and differentiate, yada, yada, yada. But the idea now is to say these are these are producers. They're mid tier, some are getting larger. They're emerging producers. Some of them produce in multiple locales, geographies in the world. So I try and rate them by risk. Like I'll tell you, well, I think this company would already have doubled in the last year had it not been in Colombia or something to that degree. But these are excellent, excellent companies. Um, that are producing. And so when you know that you're producing, it's not like you got to go raise the capital to build a mine. And let's say you drill, 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 and you come up with a lot of silver, gold, copper, zinc, and now all of a sudden you have to go borrow $4 billion in 3.5 years of effort to build this mine. So there's risk. So a lot of times the majors, if it looks right and they think they can get it for a song, right? The sharks, the medium-sized companies that want to be the big giant companies that want to gobble up everybody that's impressive. I've already had one of those gobbled up. Pan American Silver on my list, gobbled up my I just went brain dead on Mag, sorry, Mag Silver. I'm not happy about it. I mean, I was up like 20% already on Mag, owned it for a while, and then I got a 20% premium on the buyout, but I'm not really happy because Mag had high administrative costs. There were a few issues, but they had great properties. So for Pan American, who's an 8.79. They're the second largest market cap company out of both of these categories. So the first 10 here, this group, are a little safer. And what do I mean by that? They're bigger. Their jurisdictions are, generally speaking, safer. Almost all of these jurisdictions are safe, with the caveat of as soon as you go, I don't think I have any African based countries, but you do have some European. It's still relatively safer. It doesn't get safer than the US and Canada. And Mexico, once in a while, there's some issues, but Mexico's a fabulous silver mines. You're talking about the world's largest silver production coming out of Mexico. And the U.S. has a fair amount of silver, Nevada and some other states that have a history of producing. So, anyway, Pan American silver is, I think, really benefited. Now, they only got like 44% of this project that MAG is in. It's complicated. I won't get into all those logistics, but they got enough that it's a win win. First Majestic got a brilliant CEO, Keith Neumeyer. Really, really a smart guy, yet they've struggled. They had a lawsuit down in one of their mines in Mexico on back taxes and fighting with the Mexican guy. It's not completely solved. They've made some good acquisitions, and they're fixing those acquisitions. A lot of times when you buy something, the management of the other company didn't do something right, so you got to fix some of those things. So I think AG, the symbol for First Majestic, I think they're positioned where they're going to start doing really well. Secondly, silver is playing catch up. It's the only big asset, wealthy asset that hasn't reached its high from 45 years ago. I had to do the math in my head since 1980. So 45 years ago, silver hit $50, right? If you're familiar with that whole Hunt Brothers and that whole story, right? I told the story before. I was out working in the tech industry for a big company, and my boss was telling me how she had inherited silver sets from her grandparents on both sides and had them up in her attic. And she said, silver's at, 35. They say it's going to go to 50 or 100. She said, I'm selling this stuff. I knew nothing. I was in my mid 20s, late 20s, and really wasn't that yet interested. Just learning the stock market, but I really didn't know much about silver and gold, and it was already so far. I knew the impact of oil and embargoes and those kind of things that I went through, and lines for gasoline. So anyway, these companies do a good job. Silver will do well. I think Keith Neumeyer at First Majestic. Now, a couple of things I did here. Besides, obviously, you need a ticker. By the way, if I have Canadians on board, there's some Canadian symbols. I just listed the US. Okay. And I broker, I can buy some Canadian symbols, but in general, I like to deal in the US. It's in a way, there's more liquidity on the smaller ones, but these really aren't the smaller ones. So the liquidity is not so much of an issue, but sometimes on the pink sheets, and you get in 3 cents and 5 cents, and you get gaps and that this is not what we're talking about. So you got market cap, you got current price. Where are they mining? Various means it's at least three places, and I can't put abbreviations and all that. And every once in a while, I'll list two of, like Hecla. All of their mines are in North America, right? It's multiple locations, but mostly Canada and the US and North America. Okay. Coeur mining is in U.S. and a little in Mexico. Fresnillo is primarily in Mexico. So these are brilliant, and Fresnillo is the largest here. Look here. So I took a year to date. What's that? May 30th, right? Would be the last close is whatever last Friday was, May 30th. And then here's a 1 year, right? 1 year from May 30, so May 30, 2024 to May 30, 2025. And then you can tell the ones that didn't do good in between those periods. But, like First Majestic is kind of on the track. It's up 14.6% in 2025. But if you go all the way back into last year, this is up. So that means it was down 25, 30% for that period of last year. But look at some of these. Look at Avino. Love Avino. 268% year to date. 200% in the last 52 weeks. And then you got some that are just opportunistic. Endeavor's Silver is a great company. Now, I weighted this list more to silver. First off, there are no for anybody that doesn't understand that, most people that have bought miners and been in it, there are no pure silver mine. There isn't a single company on the planet that only mines silver. Silver is a byproduct. You find high grade silver mines and maybe they're producing 25% silver and the rest is other metals, gold, copper, zinc, etc. But nobody just goes out and mines pure silver. There really is no, they may focus on the silver because maybe it's other metals that aren't worth as much. But when it's gold, guys, you got 100-to-1 ratio. Gold's worth 100 times what silver's worth. It's right about at 100. That won't last. Last time we had a run up in silver, it got down to, I think, 30 or 35. So I think I don't think, I pretty much know because I retired and I made a lot of money in the decade. I've said this a few times, in the decade of the 2000s, starting in about 2001. Gold had bottomed at 250. The dot-com had happened. I lost a lot of value in the stock in my big tech company that I worked at. And I went from being, wealthy and seeing retirement in a few more years to saying, oh my gosh, I got at least another decade now. I got wiped out with stock that I was given by the company that was worth multi-millions that was almost worthless because they were options, right? That they were given to you you buy at a super low price. But when they become worthless, they're worthless. But at one point, they were worth multi-millions. And too bad, but it happens, right? The dot-com bust took everything with it. So I said, how can I get there? And I didn't really understand the commodity cycles. I knew about trading and buying stocks. I've been doing that for, 10, 15, 20 years, but I didn't really understand the commodity super cycles and how all that worked. And so that's when I figured I found oil, but mainly I found gold and silver and copper and the metals. Um, so I know something about it, a fair amount of it, right? There's certainly people like somebody like Rick Rule. There's very few people that know what Rick Rule. If you see him, on YouTube, listen to him. He's very, very, very knowledgeable. Was an executive with Sprott for many years. All right. So Coeur d'Alene, Coeur Mining, Fresnillo, Avino, Endeavor, I Am Gold, right? So some of these, you get an opportunity. Aya in Morocco, they just had a very great drill hole result about 10 to 14 days ago. So that's trending well. And don't be afraid because look at over here. What happens when you actually produce the metal, you're not speculative anymore. You may be speculative because you're drilling and you said, hey, we got a couple of drill results that look fabulous. We're going to drill, 8 more holes. And we hope that the size of what we've already identified and we're mining over the last number of years is going to double or triple. That can cause the stock to 2x or 3x. Okay, when that news comes in. So you have a lot of different situations, but when you're mining, you're already making it. So when gold goes from 2,400 to 3,400, all of these stocks tend to move up. And that's why this year to date gains generally are outsized. I mean, here's one though that had 100. New Gold. New Gold's a fabulous company in Canada. You can't generally beat these companies because they're producers and they're doing well. Again, look at Endeavor. Endeavor sits around, sometimes moves, doesn't move for a while. But I tell you what, when silver breaks 35, there's a lot of these guys. Hecla. Hecla is a big, massive company in North America. It has a high ASIC, all in sustaining, mining cost, if you will. When silver gets to 35.50 and stays there, which it's real close to, I mean, we need to break above it, come back and test it, and basically stay above that. And probably over the next year, year and a half, march to 50. Don't get me wrong, we go to 50 in 3 months, but I just think it's going to take it a while. But when it goes to 50, I don't think it's coming back down below 50 for decades. I think it moves on up into triple digits and all that because it takes too much effort and it gets too much consumed. So these are fabulous companies, guys. They average 58.25. I know a lot of you guys are doing BTC, you're doing BTC miners, you're doing all this stuff. Just look at some of this stuff. And we're just beginning. I mean, these prices are going to stay and they're going to go up with a quarter under your belt of gold at 3,200 averaging. Okay. These things that 6 months ago, 2 quarters ago, you were averaging 2,700 in gold. Well, if your production costs are say 1,400, at 2,200, you got an 800 profit that leads to free cash flow. Well, all of a sudden, from 2,400 to 3,200, you just doubled your free cash flow. You doubled your earnings. Not many companies do that. Really super rapid growth, but you're talking about big industrial, mining operations. I say big, they're still mid tier. These aren't your top one, two, three, four, or five mining companies. I mean, Fresnilio's getting up there. All right. So what did I do in the second group? So my feeling is these are 3 to 5 baggers, 3 to 5x in 3 to 5 years. So you could easily average 100% gain a year. That's nothing. I mean, I know some of you guys, and I report on all, you chase 40 or 50 or 60% yield and feeling really good about it. I know this isn't income. Some of these do pay dividends, but they're 1, 2, 1.5, 1.7. But when these companies really start hitting it, they'll probably be up around 3, 4, or 5. Either that or their stock price will, instead of being $3, it'll be $12 and they'll be paying 2% on that, right? On the yield. So you got a lot of opportunity. So moving along, here's 10 more. This next group should 4 to 10x. Let me tell you about some of those. Adriatic Metals has an ASIC for silver like 8.5. Well, when silver settles in at 35 for a quarter or two, they're going to be printing money. You have the same thing with Discovery Silver. Huge upside. Discovery Silver is probably a 10x opportunity, a 10 bagger. It's either going to be a 10 bagger or a 6 bagger. It's set. Look at this. And we've already missed the 3 bagger portion. It was up 185% over the last 1 year. But so what does that mean? That means that second half it was down. But it's been shoring up its drilling results, it's producing. There's only one company that's new, Artemis, I think, with their BlackRock mine, is just starting up. But they've been shoring and drilling and building for quite a while. Look at, they were up 67% the first 5 months. Guys, that's what this is, the first 5 months of the year through May. And then 7 months in the other year, right? So that says they're increasing, and that's what you expect. You expect it over here because the metal prices are moving up. I only see a temporary. I could see gold going to 3,100. I thought it might go to 2,800. I never say never. We could get slammed down, but I tell you what, the dollar would have to soar. The markets would have to have a mini crash, and that might take the metals down to 2880 or something. Gold. But then it'll turn around and be 4,000 or 4,500 in 2026 anyhow. It's just, temporary. Gold does that. When the markets crash, it's fear. War can do that. If war gets aggressive or breaks out and you have more hot spots, gold has a fear factor to it. It's really not an inflation factor like people say. It's more about real rates, which means what are rates versus what inflation. Like, oh, there's the market bell. I heard that in my ear. I'm sure you guys probably heard that through my microphone. I must have my volume set high on the speaker, on the output. All right, guys. So this is what I got. You can look at it. I don't need to go on and on, but there isn't anybody that I don't like on this list. I at one point I've owned every single one of them, and I made a point when I'm doing this to say the 40% I don't own right now, I'm going to go out and buy in the next week. There's only so much funds you have. But this is crazy. What this stuff will do over the next 3 years with the metal. I mean, I'm talking when I say 3 to 5x, that's probably 4,500 gold, 5,000 gold. I mean, we could get 8,000 gold. We could get 10,000 gold. We could get a reset that causes that to come quickly. I don't know, but I know we're in a super commodity cycle. All things that are real that have to get dug out of the ground or grown or something like that. We're in a super commodity cycle. So there's some great tech. I mean, you can go to Rigetti and supercomputing. You can go into some of the AI. You guys know I love Palantir. I could go on about some of the neat stuff. But there's only so much of that. You have to be really earth shaking. You have to really have intellectual property that nobody can get. That's why I tell people in the income funds that say to me, what about Carvana? What about Hui? Carvani and Hui. And I said, they're just retail plays. People are, it's a new way to sell cars, used cars. And Carvana is soaring, their stock's going. But when I see that when the rubber band gets stretched like that, I don't know when, but I know it will. That rubber band will come back, and when it comes back, it will pull back very far. So I don't see the IP. I don't see they're not a NVIDIA, the hardware. NVIDIA really created some hardware that was unique. Eventually, those margins get eroded, and people will take that away from them. But they've had a hell of a run, and they're hanging in there. And on the software side, it's even more. You can maintain those margins longer. It's harder to get knocked off on really good software, really creative, massive software. All right, guys, that's what I got for you on 20 miners to make you rich in the next 3 to 5 years. I really encourage any of you that don't own any commodities, buy a few miners. I'm not asking you to buy moose pasture. I'm not telling you buy this one, it might go 100. Probably none of these companies on these 20 are going to be a 50 bagger or 100x. And there will be some mining companies that are 50 to 100x. Good luck trying to know which. I'm going to give you a list of 30 that probably have three 50 to 100 baggers, but I couldn't tell you for sure which one. They all have that potential. But having the potential and being lucky enough to get the discovery and a few other things to happen is just not something you can always, quote, pick. All right, guys, this is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. I need to get on with my trading morning, and I'm sure some of you need to get to work and do your thing. Have a great, great day ahead. Bye for now.